In a real-life breakthrough with strong echoes of science fiction, researchers from the University of Vermont and Tufts University in the US have created a colony of living robots capable of replicating in a way never seen before. The so-called Xenobots can make copies of themselves in a process the researchers say will repeat for several generations. So, should we humans be rejoicing or be scared? And what exactly is a Xenobot? A question for Josh Bongard, Professor of Computer Science at the University of Vermont and lead author of the study.
A Xenobot is a very small millimeter-sized robot built completely from living tissue. It's built from the skin cells taken from an early frog embryo, basically from a frog egg.
What makes it a robot then? It's not the robot of the popular imagination, let's say.
So actually, the definition of robots is not so much what they're made from, but what they do, which is to move about and act on behalf of humans, which is what our Xenobots do.
Ah, okay. And now it seems not only act on our behalf, but, well, reproduce themselves. How? Why? What are they doing?
Technically, they replicate. They don't necessarily reproduce. Reproduction is the name reserved for plants and animals that grow copies of themselves on their outside or on their inside. So these xenobots replicate themselves. And they do that by moving as a swarm in a petri dish that is littered with other dissociated or loose frog skin cells. They push those cells into piles. And if those piles are large enough, the cells in the pile stick to one another and they grow very small hairs called cilia on the outside of the pile. And after 4 days, that pile will start to move, and that's a child xenobot.
Wow. Is this a process you have encouraged on in some way?
So in this paper, we show that you can get these xenobots to do this on their own. If you create a ball of these cells and let 9 of them loose in the dish, they'll produce a couple of children, but those children are too small and too weak to push more cells to create a second generation. So we brought in AI to the process, and we asked the AI to design a set of xenobots that would be more replicative, that would produce children, which would produce their own children, and so on. And it turns out that the AI was able to solve this task. It came up with a particular shape for our xenobots. They look a little bit like Pac-Men. They're sort of discs with a wedge taken
that
out
old
of them.
video game.
Exactly, exactly. And those Pac-Men, if you take 9 of them and put them in the dish, they make very large children. Those large, strong children produce large and strong grandchildren, and so on. On top of that, we want to use AI to understand how to tune up or suppress the replicative abilities.
That is Josh Bongard, Professor of Computer Science at the University of Vermont. The idea is that it could be used in more productive ways in the future. Certainly quite an astonishing development.